Let's see. Hey, we're going to get started here in just a minute. Ralph is having some technical difficulties hopping in. Hey, Chris, how you doing? See if I can get Ralph figured out on here. I'm not sure what is happening. Oh. All right, let's see. Got the southern heat going on. Hey, come down here and join the heat and the humidity. So, Brandy, I'm gonna try texting you to see if you can send it to Ralph. Hey, Courtney, how you doing? Hey, Vicky. We'll get started in just a minute. I don't know what's going on with Ralph. He's having some technical issues. If not, I'll just have to start going over everything and see if that worked. There you go. Send that to Ralph, please, Brandy. Hey, Colby. Hey, John. As soon as Ralph joins in, we're gonna go over some topics tonight. The main one we're gonna discuss is going to be hunter interview, the importance of a thorough hunter interview, and running a little behind. Here's Ralph. Hey, Ralph, how you doing?
I'm doing all right now.
I'm not sure what happened there, but
I don't
we got it figured.
I'm no good at it when everything's going good, but some stuff goes wrong.
Yeah. So I got to add some. I was just telling everyone that we're going to be going over the hunter interview process and the importance of a thorough hunter interview. So I am currently going to upload some pictures that I can share once we get going on that. So let's see. Hey, Chuck Darby. Hey, Perry Lawrence. Vicky said, "Team Brandy to the rescue." All right.
All she told me was, "Hold on, Kenny's fixing it."
Did she send you another link?
One of y'all did.
Yeah, she did.
Yep.
Yeah, Chuck, I got my hats in. Appreciate it. Let's see. So, Ralph, we're talking about hunter interview, and I was going to share, put this up there real quick. And I don't know if everyone can see that. It's probably, oh yeah, it looks good on the full screen. This is more of a record sheet, but it's a reference that I use to go over. Obviously, you collect their name, phone number. I like to collect the email so we could follow up without having to bother them too much. Date, time of call, of course. This is more for your record keeping, but main things is date and time of hit. The animal, I keep track of animal species, weapon used, all that. Again, all this is not. I mean, I utilize it because depending on what it is, rifle, muzzleloader, bow. As far as ammo, broadhead type, that's more for just record keeping.
Hey, can I answer? Let me answer Colby when you get done.
Okay.
Hey, Renee's not. This is not going to be suitable for Renee.
Well, I got more. So, what direction was the animal facing? Tree, stand, or ground? Where on the body was the animal hit? The reaction to the shot. What did they see in the hit site? Blood color, hair color, bone. This is a big one. How far did the hunter and his friends track the deer? How many people tracked it? Have there been any dogs on the trail?
Are they lying?
Yeah. Which we will find out once we get there. But the other thing is, if there has been a dog on the trail, I like to ask for who the tracker was, and if I don't know him, a phone number where I can reach out to him. But even before that, I ask, have you been in contact with any other tracker, just to alleviate any kind of issues of, maybe the hunter is getting impatient and calling multiple people and all that. Then I record. This is all afterwards. What time I started, temperature, weather conditions, end time, length of track, what dogs were used, any notes I have. Was the game recovered or not? So that's one thing. Now, this is one I wanted to show. So this is off of the TrackR app, and you can see it has the city, state, land type, reason for requesting a tracker, animal shot, date, time, all that. Similar to the other one, pass through or non-pass through, any blood found at the hit side or on the arrow, property lines nearby, and he has within 300 yards. If needed, does the hunter have permission to track? Which I think is a good thing to ask. The hunting height above the animal, shot distance, position of animal when shot, the animal's reaction. So you can see there's some similarities between the sheet that I have and what he has on his app. Has the hunter tracked the animal yet? How long did the hunter wait before tracking? Total distance tracked so far, total number of people that tracked, made any efforts to find the animal past last blood. That's another good one to ask. And then here's a graph where they think they shot it, which we, us experienced trackers know that, rarely do they get that right. And then last year I started this. I go a little further. I actually have an agreement that I have them sign, and it states I agree to allow the use of dogs to track wounded game and have permission to do so on this property. I agree to notify all parties involved at property lines that we do not have permission to access. I agree to not carry a firearm while we are tracking. I understand there is no guarantee that we will recover your game. I understand that the tracker is to remain in control during the track at all times. It goes on with some legality stuff, hold harmless and all that. I'm not saying you have to do all this, but thorough hunter interview is key. And I think you would agree to that, Ralph.
Oh, yeah.
So now I see why you want to respond to Colby.
Yeah, Colby. I'm not going to speak for all the little dogs, but like mine, they are baying machines. And either one by themselves or together, they can keep a deer busy for a few, till we get there with no problem. Mine will do a little bit of extra stuff to where, like, one of mine, and occasionally both of them will do it, but they'll silent bay, which is what I call, they'll go in and start circling the deer, and they won't even bark if the deer's laying down. So I actually can tell what position the deer's in by how the dogs are reacting. If they go in and start circling, the deer's laying down. If the deer's on its feet, they're going to bay and bark. And and even last year I started watching, like, if one dog got there first, bayed, and whether the second dog made the deer run or not. And so I'm looking forward to this year, because I found that the deer won't allow two dogs to come in like he will one dog. And the little dogs don't seem to intimidate the deer as bad. And if you're careful, you can get in there and, and as far as us running off lead down here, we can get in and get a shot at them. but you got to really be in tune with what's going on around you, because like wind and noise obviously makes a big difference. They usually run from me more so than running from the dogs. And so, but to me, there's advantages to having the little dogs because they don't scare the deer to me as much. But it's pretty cool. And if they can get to the deer, the baying, or if they can get their teeth on it, they don't hold back at all. So,
Oh yeah, yeah, and mine's done the same actually. Otto grabbed a hold of one that ran off with him
yep,
last year. He's bayed up. In fact, I shared this story before, but he bayed one that and was holding it, and then the deer saw us and broke and got out the cur dog and put the cur dog on it. Could not stop it. That deer just didn't fear the little dog as much as
yep.
it did the cur dog. Vicky Church says, ask how many bullets they have. It should have 6 in the magazine and 2 in the chamber, and they only have 7 bullets. Where's number 8? Just don't let them carry a gun, and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, let me get back to Colby's answer. Colby, they're not going to run, or unless the deer's hurt bad, they're going to get to it. If it's not, and it's can get away, they're not fast enough to run one down. It's got to be injured pretty bad. But I've brought in some catch dogs, not quite a few, but during a year, I'll go 3 or 4 times and try to bring them in. Usually when that deer runs that hard, I don't have that big of success with bringing in the catch dogs because the deer's not hurt that bad. But I know that's just me, so that's not a good statistic for overall for everybody. But
well, I have to agree, and really the key thing as we're talking about hunter interviews is proper wait times.
Oh yeah,
if you wait the proper wait time and that deer is mortally wounded, it doesn't matter what kind of dog you use.
And I obviously, having the little dogs, I'm really tough on the wait times. I stick to them as hard as I can, which I think helps in that situation a ton.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I do have dogs that obey and catch, and I still wait the proper times. And I will say before Chuck jumps in and says this, it's not always accurate science. I mean, but the longer you wait, the better your odds are. And so many people thinks the meat's going to spoil, but it doesn't get much hotter than bow season in Florida. And Ralph, how many deer have you seen spoiled that laid overnight in 90-degree temps during bow season?
In the years I've done it, only a couple. And it wasn't that we waited. It's they didn't know about us, so they didn't know. They didn't have the option of calling us, and then somebody told them. So we really started when it was too late, but they was after, they were after the antlers. They just wanted to find it for a kid. Right. One of them was with a kid. The meat wasn't no good, after.
But how many, if it was shot in the evening, you went, first thing in the morning, let it lay overnight. How many have you seen spoiled from that?
0.
Exactly. And that's 90-degree temps.
Yeah. And typically, like you're probably fixing to say, it's the deer doesn't die when they think it does.
Right.
And I've done that, waited, and a lot of deer are still alive.
Oh yeah.
So it just always helps to wait for sure.
Yeah. And Ralph, would you
go ahead
on your hunter interview, would you say you cover pretty much what was shared there?
You probably don't need to ask me. I asked the questions for the determination of the wait times.
Exactly.
Once you figure the wait time, I'm coming. Nothing else matters. I don't really care. I'm going to figure it out, and we're going to do our
Yeah, but I
best.
mean, you have to you have to ask those questions. Where do you think it was hit? What was the
Oh yeah,
reaction? What time did you shoot it?
oh yeah. I'm going to
You know,
figure out so that I can determine the severity of the hit and stuff like that. I've actually been and go out there and missed it, and I'll leave and come back.
that's
I've,
right.
where shoot, I've been out there where a guy get there, an hour and a half after the hit, get there and they didn't smell the arrow. And I looked at the arrow and went, oh crap. I licked, put some, licked my fingers and wet the arrow and smelled guts. And I said, guys, I got a couple more to go do. I'm going to come back. This is way too early for this. And so I'll waste, a lot of people, since they're there, they're going to go ahead. I'll back off and go do something else and come back. And they hardly ever, I'd say, especially in the evenings, they never really say much about it.
No, because they
They'll
want
let
to go to
me
bed.
go and come back. Yeah, and I'll come back, and sometimes I've come back in the morning and it'd be dead, but
Oh yeah.
it was safe and nothing ever goes bad.
I tracked one last year, and I think I've shared this before. I know I've shared it before. I don't know if it was on here, but I went and tracked one, and we jumped the deer, and I heard the dog grab a hold of it, and I called her back, and she came back. She had blood all over her, and I told the guy, I said, "Look, we can run this thing all night, and we'll likely stop it." I said, "But the ethical thing to do is to back out, let this deer expire, and come back in the morning, and we'll recover your deer." And he says, "Well, you made the right decision." He said, "I am a game warden," and he said, a lot of people would have just used that as an excuse to run their dogs and have fun. He said, "But I respect your decision." He said, "But I'll do it either way." But he said, "I respect your decision to wait till morning." We went back the next morning, and where we jumped that deer out of its bed the night before, we recovered it dead 9 yards away. It circled back around and bedded up in the same area, and
Yeah.
then went back later on in the season. They shot his girlfriend shot a buck, and it died 15 yards from where we recovered that one. So he's literally hunting in their bedding area.
Oh yeah.
Which, I tell everyone, you may see a deer die in water, or I believe over the years, I've come to find, I don't think there's so much that they're trying to go to water. They're trying to get back home where they feel safe, and there just happens to be water along the way, and they
Oh yeah.
expire there,
I've
or
I've had
they live in that water.
me and Jason did one last year, and actually his little kit got on the trail first, and he didn't realize it, and he was trying to call her back. And I said, "Jason, the dog's on the trail." I said, "Look right there. There's blood going off." So we just put the other dogs in there after it, and we kept walking and walking, and all of a sudden they jumped, and I started looking harder at the blood, and I picked up a leaf, put it up, smelled it, and I smelled guts. I said, "Jason, this is guts." I said, "We need to pull them dogs off." And we did. And where we pulled them off, and luckily we were at a hunt down in Camp Blanding, one of the Wounded Warrior hunts. And when we went back the next morning, we met them. The deer had backtracked on the trail that we had tracked that night, and was probably 50 yards back into the trail from where we stopped the dogs. So yeah, you're right. They want to get back to their safe place, I think, because that's what we jumped it out of.
That's right.
And so yeah, the coyotes had got to it, but it was the boys' first deer, so they didn't care. They just wanted pictures. But it was, you see all kinds of things, but that's, to me, that waiting is crucial.
Oh yeah. Let me answer Colby's question real quick. He asked me how many Yog Terriers or Jag Terriers, however you pronounce it where you're at, have y'all seen tracking since y'all started this group? I've trained a decent amount of them. Just to be honest, I'm not a big fan of them. You have to be the right handler for that dog. They want to kill everything. That's their mission. They want to hunt and kill everything that they can. So it takes the right person to train and handle that dog. Are they capable of it? Yeah, no doubt. But like I said, it's the dog has to be the right fit for you, and you have to be the right fit for that dog. So I would not recommend them to just anyone.
A lot of energy in a little package.
Yeah. Yeah. Perry Lawrence says, when I get there, I introduce myself. Then I say, look, I'm here. I'm going to track. Just be honest. I need to know if you have had dogs or hunters on it and how far. I don't even do that anymore. My dogs will tell me. They'll work through it. But I get it. Chuck Darby says, I tracked one a few years back and told the guy when it got to a property line that I am calling it. For tonight, you get permission to go over there and we will track it in the morning and the next morning, and it was still alive. We did recover it. It happens, especially in further back intestinal shots. I've went back 3 days in a row and the deer be alive and recover it the third or fourth day.
Yeah. Those are tough.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I just signed up for subscription on the tracker app, and I was looking at the statistics, and that, of course, it's only from the statistics are only from the calls that came in on that app. But I tell you, it'll open your eyes when you start looking at stuff like that. And I keep record of my own too, and and it pretty much coincides with that. Obviously, I do a lot of off lead tracking, so there are some big differences there. My recovery rates are significantly higher, almost double. Not quite double, but 2/3 higher than what the average is on that app. But again, there's a lot of variables that go into that. I'm not one to screen my calls unless I'm just so backed up that I'm not going to take what I feel may be a clean miss over a gut shot. I'm going to go recover that gut shot, not because it's easier, but because I'm practicing time management.
Yep, I will say that is about the only thing that I screen is, do I have time to get to it? Because we get too many calls during the weekends and stuff. You just don't have enough time.
That's right.
But I usually I don't screen the severity of the hit. I'm usually screening where it's at and can I even handle it that day, and we'll get it to somebody else.
Yeah, and even if I can't go, I'm going to try to get a hold of someone else. I probably refer out 100, 150 tracks a year at least. Yeah. Brad Shoemaker asked a question, what do you think about shoulder shots, go or no go? I go.
Oh, absolutely.
It all depends on what it was shot with, where at in the shoulder, but I'm going. You don't know until you go. And every chance that I get to go on a track, I know is an educational opportunity for the hunter. And we're going to learn something from it, whether we recovered or not. I learned something on almost every track.
And I have been wrong before, so I don't like that. So I go.
Oh yeah.
Wrong, the deer be dead and me not go. And if it's a new guy, you've lost a customer. You go and deal with it. You got a customer for many years.
Yeah. And I will say this, I'm upfront and honest before I go on a track. I know you've heard it, Ralph. I've told people, hey, this is exactly what's going to happen. We went on one together last year. Actually, it was me, you, Jason Bell, and Jason Byer and John Vaughn.
Yeah.
And I knew going into it what the outcome was likely going to be. And I went out there before anyone else, and I put Otto on it, and Otto came back, sat down and looked up at me and was telling me, "Hey, this ain't happening." And he wanted to try, so we brought out some other dogs. And I told him, you remember, Alf, I told him, I said, look, if I turn Dixie out, she goes out there, she comes back and jumps up on us, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
But first we turned Camo out, and Camo progressed it further than Otto, just because Otto, he stopped sooner and said, hey, we're wasting our time here.
Yep.
And Camo, she's a little different. She pushed through that, and then we tried.
We're gonna find the deer. We just can't control what condition it's in.
That's right. But then when I was up front and said exactly how Dixie was going to react, and we turned her out and a couple other dogs right behind Camo, and sure enough, she went in there and got to where the deer was, turned around, came back, jumped up on all of us, and went to the truck. Said, "All right, my job's done."
Yep.
And he got it back on camera.
And even though if we would have never went, he would have doubted if we all wouldn't have came and tried a second opinion and that kind of stuff, he would have doubted it, because he was doubting it at first.
Oh yeah.
And once we got there and laid out the game plan, told him what we thought, told him how every dog would act if this happened that way. And sure enough, Otto, Camo, and Dixie, we spelled out exactly what would happen if it was still alive and good. And sure enough, it all happened. When we were done, he was tickled to death. He knew, he just felt at ease. So it doesn't, and that's where people, to me, what do you call a successful track? I call that success. We've painted a picture for that guy to a T of what happened. And he left and he was fine. Called us when the deer showed back up on camera. There wasn't nothing them dogs could do. We did everything those dogs could physically do. And it just wasn't, it wasn't our fault the guy shot bad.
And they ended up getting it. He ended up getting the deer later on.
But it just, so those, I go home tickled to death when that happens. I know what's going on. And those are, you don't get a recovery off of that, but it's a successful track. So I knew going in, because I told you before I left, and what was that, that was a 2.5 hour drive for me.
Oh yeah.
But it didn't matter. I'm coming to help. But we knew what was going on. I said, you know why Otto didn't take it anymore? And he goes, you said, yeah. I said, yeah, the deer's still alive, but I'm coming. I'm going to help. But we know what's going on. But it don't matter. That's part of the fun of it. It just.
Oh yeah, we every one of us knew what the outcome was going to be, but it was a good friend of mine, and there had been another dog on it before that. But like I said, we all knew, and we knew the importance of the track, and we showed up and we did exactly what we were set out to do. Oh, yeah. And in fact, you and I spoke, Ralph, beforehand, and we talked about, the reason why we're doing this, what we're doing, and all that. 2 other trackers showed up before you and Jason arrived, and they were itching. Why are we waiting? I said, look, I got a plan in place. I know how this is going to unfold, and we're doing this for a reason, and it worked out exactly how we thought.
Yep. So I don't know. There again, I keep beating it in, and to the new hunters or the people that screen a lot, they waste. To me, I don't want to waste that opportunity. That guy needed to feel different than what he was feeling, and we made it all happen. And I don't know how to do any more. That's pretty cool when we can go in and do that.
That's right. And Colby sharing one here. He said, I recovered a bow shoulder shot buck last year that only had 6 inches of penetration, but it had went through shoulder blade and got deep enough to graze the heart and bled out internally. Deer was dead within 8 hours after the shot. And I could tell you probably hundreds of stories like that, and some that I scratched my head wondering, how in the world did we get this deer? I got one well, I've shared a couple times, hit one testicle, another one, I recovered a back whack. The deer just stopped and stood there and let us get right up to it. I mean, you just never know.
Uh,
And
And I
Joe,
usually have enough dogs to where I got a dog that needs to be on a track. So every track is good for a dog anyway. So it never
yep,
ends. It
that's right.
it just never does.
Yeah, I like what Joe's saying here. The same thing that I do. I have found that explaining the dog's tells before you track helps a lot. They will start picking up on the tells and call them out before I do, and it
Yep.
does help. I mean, you know, uh,
Absolutely.
Kim Long, she's probably not on here right now, but Kim Long asked me. This was, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. We were sitting around a campfire. She says, how do you go to these tracks and not spend 3, 4, 5 hours? She said, you go to some and you're there an hour and make the call to leave, and the hunters are fine with it. How do you do that? I said, well, I'm just honest and upfront before I get there. I tell them exactly where I think the deer's hit. I tell them exactly how the dog's going to track, what the dog's tells are, as Joe was saying. And I tell you, they don't, most of the time, when you spell all that out before you get out there, they don't question it when they see it. And instead of wasting 3 hours to try to satisfy a hunter, they see that dog telling, or it playing out exactly how you said, then they're quicker to say, okay, you're right, we're not going to get this one.
Yeah. You got to be confident in your dog, though. That
That's
is
right.
one of the big telltale signs to a hunter is you have not just tell them, you got to be confident in what you're telling them and how your dog acts. If all that's accurate, I don't have many that doubt it.
Right. Darren Miner asked a question, or I'm wrong one. Darren Miner asked questions. How many of the shoulder shot and back whack deer are you I think you meant recovering dead or having to dispatch? Um, Shoulder shot, I'd have to go back and look. I mean, I recover a lot that it says shoulder shot. Everything says shoulder shot, and you get there, and it. I mean, it's a dead deer within a few hundred yards. So
Yep.
to rule it out and say, oh, that's a shoulder shot, I'm not going. I'd have to look up the numbers, but I would say probably around 35 to 40% at least are dead on arrival.
Yeah.
If not a little higher.
Yeah. Shoulder shots, I can get dispatching is better than the back whacks. You might have better luck with the back. I hate them. I'll go, but I'm dang sure telling them how the dog's gonna do, which is typically it don't do anything. Uh, they don't even hardly leave the hit site, but so I'll know pretty quick on that. But the shoulder shots, shoot, there. We find enough of them. I'm going. I
Oh
don't
yeah.
back off of a shoulder shot. I don't even back off of a leg shot. And I got little dogs. That's because I know they're going to be laid up somewhere if another dog hasn't been there and they haven't pushed the deer. That to me is more of the problem than us finding the deer. It's have they pushed the deer, because that shoulder shot, he's going to lay down when he's hurt, but he'll get up and go a country mile if it's not too bad. But it's just have they pushed that deer off his first bed yet? That dictates a lot to me.
Yeah, and as far as back whacks go, I the percentage is significantly less, but I have I have went to deer. In fact, the second one for that game warden that I was telling you about, um, another tracker wanted to go with me that night, him and his father, and I said, "Look, I got a call." I said, "We're likely not going to find this deer." I said, "The deer hit the ground, laid there for a few minutes, started thrashing around, got up and left." We ended up recovering that deer at 126 yards, dead on arrival. So the average person that screens would not have taken that track, and that deer would have laid in the woods and rotted. So that's why I go. If I'm available, I go, and if not, I'm going to try to find them someone. And Ralph, I think you know this. Most people that we know and we track with, they're going to go.
Oh yeah.
We in our area very rarely do tracks get turned away through screening.
Yeah. And they're right, Vicky and Darren. Being on lead all the time, that would be tougher.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
It's
I kind of have to agree and disagree there because I have done a lot of on lead tracking. I do a lot of off lead, but I have recovered a lot of shoulder shot deer on lead. I've recovered back wax on lead. So I, personally, I'm not going to let that be a reason for me not to go.
yeah. But it also, uh, our statistics down here, we're going through so many deer compared to what it sounds like up there. It just so it. I guess the statistics could be the same, but we just go. We get a lot of calls, so we're running through so many deer. We see enough that we go.
Yeah, and see, I'm gonna have to disagree with Vicky on this one as well, and she's gonna probably blow up my phone now. The deer are 3 counties away. We scare them before we get there. We're also not allowed to pursue live deer. You don't know if the deer's alive. I've heard that from Vicky before, and I've said the same thing. You don't know if that deer's alive.
No.
Just because you think it's shoulder shot doesn't mean it's alive. Just because you see bone doesn't mean it's alive. I found a lot of deer dead on arrival. There was bone at the hit site.
Yeah.
And we have to track on lead and WMAs. There's a lot of properties that require us to track on lead, and I've recovered a lot. I mean, probably several hundred shoulder shot deer on lead over the years. So maybe it's like you said, Ralph. I mean, we're getting, you and I probably average 300, 350 calls a year and go on 200, 200, 250.
Yep.
So maybe that's why. Maybe that's the difference. We go on so many more tracks. I will say I use different tactics than some people. My wait times are a little longer on, when I find bone. I mean, I'm not one to go out there just right away, try to get there as fast as I can. I'm not in a hurry.
Yeah. And it also different. I like tracking with people. Me and Jason and me and Travis, we go all the time together. I'd rather go with people than go by myself. I just enjoy the heck out of having friends tracking. And me and Jason went on one last year, and I'd told you about this, but we went on it, and we had a game plan going up. It was outside of Lake City towards Fargo up there, and it was his call, and we had, I think, 4 dogs with us. And so we was, a couple of them were young, so we was just tickled to death. We were wanting to get them out. And we get up there, and Jason goes up to talk to the guy, and he comes back to him and he goes, "Hey, the guy's got bone." He looked at me and he goes, "We don't need to turn all these dogs out. Let's just turn Camo out, because we know if the thing's bayed up, she's going to act different if she's by herself, because if she's with other dogs, she doesn't silent bay. She's going to bark." And so we didn't want to take that out of our options, so we just turned her out. Sure enough, we went in there and she started circling and barked, and as soon as she barked, I knew the deer just stood up. And Jason got in there and slipped in there and got to dispatch the deer, but it didn't go anywhere. The one dog didn't scare it off. And so we changed tactics. Like you were just saying, I change on a moment's notice based on what we hear, based on what we see when we get there. Halfway through a track, I'll change, and we'll leash the dogs and hold them back or take them back to the truck. We'll change in a minute. for the purpose of recovering that deer the best way we think we can. So but that's putting some strategy into every track. And that's fun as crap to me. I love that kind of approach.
I have a question for Darren. Darren, what benefit is it to not take those calls? What do you benefit by turning it down? I guess maybe
or any of them, because when we were up in Pennsylvania,
I was just asking Darren because he's the one that brought it up.
Sure. I've always wondered that myself.
I could see it if you're backed up and or you have something else going on. Maybe you wouldn't take that call if that you may not have the time that the hunter would want you to spend on it. But I see there being more advantage in taking it by being, like you said, being able to educate those people. And not just that, you spend the time with them, they'll call you back next time.
Yeah.
A lot of times all that the people are looking for is reassurance. Many times they know, especially an experienced hunter, you do get those ones that just doesn't want to accept it. And then, when it shows back up on camera, they may or may not call and tell you. But outside of that, I personally don't see any benefit in not taking it. So I'd like to hear a different viewpoint. I'm not trying to argue or be combative. I have a different experience and a different mindset on it. And Vicky responded and said, she's saying the majority of the deer we don't recover are probably these types of deer. I go and don't have a recovery. Yeah. I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
And she says that's why we're lucky if we're in the high 30% range for recoveries. I don't think I've been in the 30% range even on lead in a while. And it might be that, we've been able to track for so many years that, we're pretty good in our region about educating the hunters and reaching out to the hunting community. And we've, over the years, the hunters have gotten a lot better about not contaminating the trails, making the right decisions. I mean, we still get some that, we tracked one last year that had literally 30 deer dogs put on it before we got there. And we recovered the deer. The guy knew it was dead. His dogs just, those deer dogs, they just wanted to go chase a live deer. And John thinks he called us just because he wanted help dragging the deer out. And Vicky Church said, add lack of hunter education here in PA. And I think that's a lot of it. And that's why I think it's important to take those calls. Even if you think that you're not going to recover the deer, I think it's important to take the call if you have the ability to, so that you can educate. I mean, you go there and you spend that time with one person and you educate them, and then they go back and tell 5 of their friends, and then they tell 5 of their friends. Well, look at how many people that spread to.
Yeah.
But if you don't go and you don't educate, they might be upset, not want to call a tracker again. So Brandon C says, how often do the deer show back up, ones we can't find?
I just was figuring out the percentage of that. Last year, mine was 32% showed back up on camera.
And those are the ones that contacted you to let you know, right?
Yeah, but that's correct. But like on the hunter interview, or when I get there, I'm collecting information to get back in touch with them, because I spend a lot of time calling back on the deer we don't recover, because I want to find out that statistic of how many show back up. And it's been wonderful, because I don't miss many, calling them back to see if that deer showed back up on camera. And even if I've pulled up to gas stations or stores and see somebody I tracked that, and I'll ask them, and they'll say, oh yeah, we showed that one showed back up. I'll go back and change my statistics for last year, to show that. And it's worth calling the people back.
Yeah. Yeah. Because more times than not, they're not going to contact you and let you know.
No, yeah, that if you waited for that, yeah, you're correct. Most of that is from me calling them.
Right.
That's for sure. Jason taught me that. He is religious about getting back in touch with them. I was
Yeah.
just reading that one from Mike.
Yeah. So I've had the same thing. You know, when I first started out tracking, I was strictly on lead. And in fact, I encourage every person, even if they're in an on off lead state that it's legal to track off lead, I encourage them to track at least one season on lead when they first start, because you really learn a lot. I will say that I do like tracking on lead, um, because you're involved in every aspect of it. You know, it's you're not cutting corners, and I have missed stuff. You know, when I go around a briar thicket, or a cypress head swamp, because I don't want to go through it, and I could go around and get to the dog. Well, I may have missed some important sign in there. Um, so Darren responded, because it's typically the volume of calls for us, especially in November. I can't wear myself or dog out chasing them on lead. Also, from our experience, we recover very few shoulder shot or back whack. 3-inch of penetration is a no-go. Although I have personally killed deer with little penetration, deep penetration would likely sway me to go. Sorry, that's just the way I see it. I don't, like I said, Darren, I don't disagree if it's a volume of calls issue. I will say I think there's benefit in getting them help somehow, on lead or not. I mean, the ones that we recover, typically I would have recovered on lead or off lead. Um, there's a lot of misconception about off lead from people that doesn't understand it. It's, do you have those moments where a dog would bay up a deer, or catch a deer that an on lead dog wouldn't? Yes. But it's not what people thinks it is all the time.
Yeah.
Like I said, I track both. More times than not, you get to that deer on lead and you cut that dog loose, you're not stopping that deer. So I think it'd be good for people to experience both sides. You agree with that, Ralph?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's no question that part of it. Um, I do believe there's. I might even disagree with you a little bit from the on lead, off lead. I just think that the dog's ability gets hindered on leads so bad, especially down here in our thick woods. It just, golly, I just can't imagine it. But it I think it throws too much human factor in, at least with my dogs, because they do so much searching and stuff. If we're in a situation where they got to find it, I just can't imagine myself going through everywhere they go.
It sucks.
Yeah,
But I think, as far as the end result on the majority of deer, with the proper wait times given, let me include that in there. If you wait the proper wait times and you get to a deer off lead or on lead, typically you have the same results. The ones that I think makes a difference when you don't wait those proper times.
Yeah.
If you go in there at 3 hours, 4 hours on a gut shot deer, yeah, of course a off lead bay or catch dog is going to stop it where an on lead wouldn't. But you take those same off lead dogs and you wait 12 hours, you're going to have the same results that you would with that off lead dog.
Yeah.
And that's where I was going with that.
Yep.
And I think that's where the misunderstanding, or comes in, is because there's so many off lead trackers out there that do not practice wait times.
Yeah. Travis was on there. He said he tracked 3 years on lead with bear before I bought a tracking collar. That's how I know bear so well. Yep.
Yeah, and that's how you learn your dog, no doubt.
Oh yeah, he knows his dog as good as I know Camo. I track with him a lot, and we can read some dogs.
Now I do get where Darren's coming from with the volume of calls, especially we've now have a little insight as to the areas where Darren tracks, and there's not the volume of trackers that we have.
No,
and he's like Vicky said, there's not the education in that area that we've had here.
Yeah.
And part of our plan or our mission, it states that we are going to educate the hunters. Well, our focus hasn't been on the hunters up to this point directly, but it has indirectly. If we train the handlers and the new handlers on all of this stuff, they in turn will go out there and educate the hunters. So indirectly, through these videos, through the seminars, we're spending a lot of one-on-one time with these handlers, and we're just like in Pennsylvania, a lot of those people came back to us and we got feedback. Hey, I never knew this. I never heard this. I didn't think of it this way. Just like, she said, made the comment earlier, we're not allowed to track a live deer. Well, how do you know it's alive? Ralph, you were there. How many people said, well, we couldn't take a track if we found bone at the shot site because that's a live deer? Well, how do you know it's alive?
Yeah.
And through that education, some of them have seen them. You know what? You're right.
Yeah.
Let's see. So
I'm with me with the little dogs, I don't have that catch ability, but I personally, I don't believe my statistics are using different tactics. They're just as good as the catch dog guys. And so, not to trying to compare, but it is. So using different tactics can give you the same results sometimes. And I've brought dogs in, they don't catch that many that we can't get to. They just don't do it. So it's not, I think a big factor to that is they go early. They have to catch. They're not going to find a dead deer because they go too early. Right. And they think that takes that margin of error away. I don't agree with that at all. I think your margin of error gets better by doing nothing but implementing waiting times.
Well, I can tell you this, off lead, before I started waiting the proper times, I was averaging 52 to 56% recovery rate without screening calls. When I started practicing proper wait times, that number jumped to 64 to 67% recovery rate.
Yep. I don't have a choice, and I'm in the high 60s with myself. Right. 67 last year and 65 the year before.
So, and that's without screening calls.
Oh no, well, I don't. Yeah, no, I'm not. Absolutely not screening calls.
I mean, if I know if I know it's a clean miss, or let me rephrase it. If I think it's a clean miss, I'm still going to go if I have the time and the ability.
Oh, son, there's no question. I have found so many non-hit deer. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So Darren and Perry said here, Perry said, my area, Oklahoma, hunters normally do not wait to track. I understand I was one of them. So I've shared this before, Perry. You may not have heard it. And Ralph has seen me do this. They tell me they don't want to wait. I said, all right, well, I'm gonna get ready. And I drag my feet. I'll take my time. They'll call me. Hey, where you at? Oh, I just, I had some issues getting the dogs loaded up. I got them loaded up. I'm heading that way.
Hey,
and then I'll just take my time. That's all right. So I take my time, and then when I get there, my collar won't sync up. We got to wait, and I draw it out for another 10, 15 minutes. Then I'll walk in there to the hit site, and I say, hey, I want to look at it before I get the dog out, make sure we're making the right decision, see what we see. And next thing you know, where they wanted me to track right away, well, it took me 2 hours to get there or 3 hours to get there because I'm dragging my feet. Well, now I just wasted another hour while I was there. Well, guess what? Now I'm at 3, 4, 5 hours.
Yeah.
And I have yet, even the ones that say I got to go home right away, I have yet to have someone say, "Hey, I'm gone."
Yeah.
They tell you that, "Oh, I can't wait because," or I got to get back home, and they tell you that to get you there. And you know what? I'm to the point now. I get enough calls. It doesn't matter to me. If you don't want to wait, call someone else.
Yeah.
That's how I am anymore. But that is some tactics that I use to get people to wait. I just drag my feet.
Yeah.
Mike Travis's comment here says, I highly agree that off lead is the best choice because the dog can track to the best of his ability versus you having a leash on a dog. Because a lot of times some people mislead the dog, pulling them away. Yeah, I agree with that. But as you can see with some of this, there's a common misconception about off lead tracking. And it comes from those people that just want to turn the dogs out right away and bay and catch and, post videos on social media to look cool. That's where that misconception comes in. I listened to a podcast the other day, and I'm not going to say anyone's name, but there was some people up in the Northeast on this podcast, and they said that you cannot train a dog to stick to one deer, an off lead dog. It will it will leave it and get on off game. And I strongly disagree with that. This is what I do. It's so I don't see some of these states ever allowing off lead tracking because of that mindset, because of the misinformation out there and them not understanding what exactly goes on.
Yep. Mike. Yeah. Put Mike's up there.
Okay. Yeah, the biggest issue as far as wait times are most hunters don't understand wait times before they grid search.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. You
but
throw a few.
That's where showing up and educating comes into play.
Yep. I'm always out to get the next call and the next call from them too. So going and even if something went wrong, figuring it out, handling it, and then letting them know not to do it. They don't always listen, but tell them, say, next time, just don't do that. Just let me know, or let me know you did grid search so I can get outside the contaminated area and try to find, a single track leaving or something leaving rather than having to work through all that grid searched area. That helps.
The dogs will work through it. Just takes a whole lot more time.
Oh yeah. And that's tough when you're sitting here stacked up, all night long. You got to get to the next one. Nobody thinks about that. It's about them. And if we just knew all this stuff ahead of time, that'd make it a lot better.
Yeah. And, Perry said he thought off lead was bay and catch until he saw one of the videos. Yeah. And a lot of people does think that. Now, Perry Lawrence, I'm going to put his comment up there, but I haven't even read it yet, but I want to touch on something with Perry. He says, I have a lot of places where I have to go on lead, and a couple, so many hunters, I'm not going to let him off lead. Now, Perry is one that has always tracked on lead. And I trained Perry's dog before he got it. And I train every dog on lead, every dog. But I did collar condition Perry's dog, and I did work that dog off lead. But when Perry got him, he strictly worked on lead. Well, now Perry has been struggling transitioning from on lead to off. And it comes from not being able to trust his dog off lead and being able to read that dog differently because it changes the way it tracks. Mike says what stinks is when they bump him off the property, and that does happen.
That to me is my worst enemy of tracking is the hunters pushing the deer. That to me is one of the worst things. And when they've pushed them and just can't get to them, when they call in and say, I've tracked it 500-600 yards, and my all hope just leaves me. Not that we haven't found them, but it's like, you got to be kidding me. And they'll throw in, we found 2 wound beds, and I'm like, crap, that deer's been laying in the first one if you ought to left it alone. But
yeah, and another thing to touch on the on lead off lead thing is, I can't speak for everyone, but I follow my dog. Obviously, if the dog jumps and runs, obviously I can't keep up with the dog. But when we're straight trailing, I'm right there with that dog, and I'm following that dog step for step through the woods. It's not just turn them out at the truck, sit there and wait.
Oh no.
I do track a lot off lead, but from the years of tracking on lead, I still have that same mindset mentality, because I want to see what's going on along that trail and make sure I'm making the right call too. I don't agree with just turn them out and sit there.
Go back to Travis's talking about grid searching. Yeah, me and him got up to a plan. They had been in the woods. They told me they had been in the woods. I said, y'all just get out. And I said, we'll come. We'll be up there at a certain time. And got to it. Me and Travis pulled up into this food plot. And I'll bet you no less than 6 to 8 guys come walking out of the woods where the deer went in. It's probably about as mad as I've ever been. They could not stand it. I come out of that truck. I was ticked because we had to drive, an hour and a half to get there. And they'd been in there grid searching. Well, and it was an intestine shot. So once they said it was gut shot. Well, it turned out to be intestine shot. And luckily the girl she had walked in the woods with us. And I told Travis, I said, Travis, this is not acting like a gut shot, because Bear or Cama, they were struggling. And Bear actually took it, and he was slow. He was just step to step. And I looked at him and I said, this is acting like an intestine shot, not a gut shot. And the girl said, well, I got a video. After about an hour of us tracking, I said, let me see the video. Sure enough, it was 1/4 and hit right in front of the ham. So we knew it went back behind the ham. I'm like, there you go. I was like, God dog it. And we jumped it and never got it. And but that grid searching, it's even bad when you tell them not, and they just still go in. They just can't stand it.
Oh yeah.
And that ruined the hunt. That deer, we'd have probably had a better chance, but they had pushed that deer.
So Tyler asked, any updates planned for the tracker app this year? Had good success with it last year. Shane has not shared any major updates with me this year. Actually, I was talking to him right before we hopped on. We were texting back and forth. He is currently working on updating, adding more trackers. I know someone else said that they've been waiting, and then I had another person text me and said that they were added as provisional and have since gotten more certifications. And so Shane is working on that stuff. I will say one big update is we are going to, probably next week, I'll be able to get it done. We are going to have links on our website to the app. And we've been spreading the word. There's several apps out there now, and that's just the direction that a lot of people are going in. As far as I still think social media is the biggest avenue right now. It's the biggest reach, but I like the features on these apps. We'll see what the future holds. I think he's got a good program going on, and like I said, I just paid for the subscription tonight, and Ralph and I we help Shane with screening process on some of these trackers and, giving our feedback and recommendations because, Shane reaches out to us because he doesn't know the people in our area and we work with them all the time. If we don't know them, we know someone that knows them. And that's another thing that I like is he's making sure that, he's doing everything within the best of his ability to ensure that quality trackers are being listed on that app. It's not just pay $25 and your name gets on a list. So Ralph, we've got to jump on a conference call here in just a few.
All right.
I think this was a great show. I really appreciate Darren and Perry and Vicky and Travis and everyone. Joe, Brandon,
Mike,
Courtney, Mike, everyone. Tyler, we appreciate all of you for jumping in, commenting.
Yep.
And even if we agree and we agree to disagree, we're going to learn from it. Just like Darren hopped on and shared his viewpoint. I think that's good. I appreciate that myself. And
oh yeah.
So
I like hearing different because I don't mess around with the on lead that much. So you get to hear a different side from guys that they're on it every day.
Yeah. And I used to be. I'm glad I'm not on it every day. I do. Well, I say that we train every day on lead. And, I pride myself in being able to read a dog very well. And that comes from that time behind that lead. And like Travis Sykes said, that's where you make a dog, or you make a handler, I should say. You make a handler by being on lead behind that dog, watching every move. So again, I appreciate all of that, and that's how we're all going to learn. And I do want to say this whole topic. Not the on lead versus off lead and all that, but this whole topic with the hunter interview, wait times, this was all requested from a newer handler that contacted me, called me earlier in the week. And so if you guys ever have anything that you want us to discuss or bring up, reach out to us. Obviously people enjoyed this one. We've held a rather large audience the whole time. We've had a lot of interaction. So if you reach out to us and there's something that you want to know or you want us to touch on, we'll do it.
Also, don't forget about the Pennsylvania. I know it's a little early, but we're having the tracker seminar, no dogs, but just like we did in Fargo down here, man, it was awesome. It'll be good up there too.
I'm going to put the flyer on here. We have not shared this yet, but what better time than now, right, Ralph?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me go ahead and put this up there so you guys can see what all is going on. I mean, this is going to be
packed.
Yes. And like I said, we're targeting not only the dog handler, the hunter, but for the hunter, we're gonna have deer anatomy. Well, this is for the hunter and the tracker now. Deer anatomy, shot placement, reading the signs, wait times, blood trail strategies for the hunter. How to track your deer. How to progress. If you have multiple people, have someone stay on last blood. Don't vary off too much. So we're gonna go over all that stuff. When to call a tracker, how to choose a tracker, what to do before calling a tracker, information the tracker will need. And this is going to be a hot topic: humans versus dogs versus drones.
Wow.
And I reached out to an individual who has a drone and who has a dog, and they have committed to coming and speaking. So that's going to be interesting. Now, drone recovery is not legal right now in Pennsylvania, but this isn't limited to just Pennsylvania people. Anyone is welcome to come.
Yep.
We're going to go over statistics, trusting the tracker, compensation, follow-up. And then on the handler side, dog selection, dog care, basic obedience, scent profile, the science behind it all, scent training, hunter interview and controlling the track, ethical practices, tools for the track, technology for tracking. We're going to go over these apps and the Garmin's and, how to utilize them both on lead and off lead will benefit from a Garmin. Handler development and mentoring and apprenticeship of handlers, testing and certification, marketing, and a group favorite, the what would you do questions, questions and answers interaction topic. And that is going to be jam-packed information. And food and drinks provided. It's, you don't want to miss it. It's in some beautiful country in Birmingham, Pennsylvania, which is Lancaster County.
Tyler asked, when is it? Look right under the main heading up top where it says deer tracking seminar. There's the date right there, but it's August 24th and it'll start at 9 a.m. You can get there early. We'll be there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And this is at, Vicky can chime in, but this is at the firehouse has a banquet room there that we were able to get and use. And Ralph will be cooking. So, Garmin talk in Iowa, please. Some of us are technology dumb. We will be going over a lot of this in Iowa as well, Chris. I don't know that we're going to have, we'll see. I'll get with Jeff, but we'll see if we have time to cover all these topics. But I don't even know if we're going to get all this done in 8 hours, but we're going to do our best. And, maybe they won't cut us off at 8 hours. And, most of the learning doesn't happen during the seminar, or I shouldn't say most. A lot of it is sitting around talking, telling stories, and
oh yeah,
so
it'll be good. It'll be packed.
Oh yeah, yep. So, all right. Well, we got to get on this conference call, Ralph, and
right.
I appreciate everyone.
We'll catch y'all next week.
Yeah. Have a good one.
All right. See y'all later.